Ashtavadhanam performed in where the topic is entirely Gita. So the Gitavadhāni has all the 700 verses in his memory. He remembers all the 700 verses. So the different questions the 8 Prachākas can ask him. So someone may just say a word from a verse. Now the Avadhāni has to identify which verse, which chapter, which verse, and then repeat the whole verse. Or sometimes one Prachāka will just repeat one verse from any chapter. Then the Avadhāni is expected to repeat 10 more verses ahead or 10 more verses behind it. Okay, that's how his memory is put into test. Or sometimes Sankhya Kathana, in the sense that someone will be saying, say, verse number 34 of, say, chapter number 18 and line number this. So he has to say that. Namaskar. Today we will be talking about a completely beautiful topic. The topic is on Avadhānaṃ. Usually when I ask people about this word Avadhānaṃ, maximum number of people they say, oh, we are hearing it for the first time. Then I correct them saying that yes, you all know about it. If you have heard the word Savadhanam, then you know what Avadhanam is. Like we use the word saparivara, परिवार के साथ सपरिवार, तो अवधान के साथ सावधान. So the word savadhana is sa-avadhana, meaning with avadhana. The meaning which we derive from the word savadhana, avadhana has the same meaning. It means a careful attention. And without careful attention, in life, we cannot really do something good. Anything that we do, starting from morning till we go to the bed, whatever we do, in whatever profession we may be, we need this careful attention. Whether someone is cooking food, whether someone is driving, whether someone is teaching, someone is in any kind of job. So if there is this careful attention, then the task can be performed well. It demands a lot of concentration, it demands attention, it demands a lot of inner faculties to be trained. But in India, the Avadhan has developed into a very fascinating literary art form. Just imagine yourself in a Gurukul, or if you have visited any Vedic Gurukul, you must have seen the young children, the elderly people reciting the mantras together, not by reading texts or not by looking at the text, but they are reciting the mantras from their memory. Just imagine 10,500 mantras of Rig Veda. The Gurukul children reproducing it from their memory. Is it not amazing that, like how did they memorize it? How did they keep it in the memory? What technique they followed? And it's not something new. For thousands and thousands of years, these texts are in the memory of the people. The entire Veda, the Brahmana text, a huge number of texts are there in the memory of the people, Gurukul people. We have kept that tradition alive. So every Veda learner in the Gurukul was called Avadhani because it demanded a lot of concentration. It's not easy to memorize texts. A simple example you can take in our day-to-day life. Suppose you are going to the market for buying something. Someone has told you to bring something, a list of things. Very difficult to remember all these things. 1 or 2 things, 5 things, 10 things we are not remembering. So poor is our memory power. We are entirely dependent on gadgets or some written text. Even remembering the phone numbers, just imagine if the phone book is lost or the phone is lost, we are not in a position to recall all the numbers or the important numbers. So today the situation is extremely horrible, but in our tradition there are solutions to this. So these Avadhanis, the Veda learners, they had lot of little games amongst them to test each other's memory. Say for example, like they would sit together and someone will recite a mantra and drop few words. The others have to catch him. Oh, you dropped these words. Or drop or make a mistake in the swara. Drop few letters. So others have to be so attentive that they can catch him that okay, here you did a mistake. You dropped these words. Or they would ask various kinds of questions. They would give them the numbers. Okay. So the Avadhani who is performing this or who is under test, so he has to answer the questions very correctly. So this is how this kind of memory test was prevalent among the Avadhanis, practicing the Veda mantras, memorizing the mantras. This happens even today in many Gurukulas. And slowly this form of Avadhānaṃ, this kind of tests, memory tests, it got transformed into a great literary feat. So it came to be practiced as a literary feat. It had its phases. So if you go historically, so it developed into different art forms, literary art forms. There also there are variations. I will discuss about it going ahead. But this is how the whole story began. And Avadhānaṃ, when it came to be in the field of literature, it attracted the poets, especially the poets, to develop that capacity within themselves. All those who wanted to or wished to become Avadhanis, so it demanded that they should develop, by following a certain discipline, the great poetic ability, mastery over language, mastery over many shastras, because the questions can come from any corner, from any shastra. They have to have a great ability of the memory and the power of expression, and they should be in a position to answer the questions confidently without being disturbed. So this is how the Avadhānaṃ became a literary feat, a literary game, and that also took various forms. Variations are there how they practiced, and then what is prevalent today, so that I will be discussing. But before that, a little bit of my personal experience with Avadhanam. Until the year 1999, I had no idea about how Avadhanam happens. Though I was familiar with the word and the concept, but I had never experienced watching an Avadhan program. So in the year 1999, at that time I was in Pondicherry, so I got an opportunity to coordinate one Avadhan program. And in that program, it was my first experience watching the Avadhan program, and it was one Ashtavadhanam. So this word Ashtavadhanam meaning eightfold concentration. Though the Avadhan, the way it happens, when we look at it, we will see that it is a multiple concentration feat or a performance of simultaneous concentration, though the modern psychology doesn't accept simultaneous concentration. It's not possible. There must be some gap. Yet, it's amazing to see any Avadhan program and then how Ashtavadhanis manage attending to 8 different people, asking them questions, where the Avadhani is the performer, Avadhanam is the program, is the performance, and Avadhani is the person who is giving the performance. If the person is attending to 8 different questionnaires, 8 different items, so he is known as Ashtavadhani. Similarly, you have Satavadhanis. They attend to 100 different questions. The number of people may be less, but questions will be 100. There are Sahasravadhanis. They attend to 1,000 different questions. 1,000 different questions. But Ashtavadhanam is a most popular form of Avadhanam art form. And this Avadhanam takes place as it is prevalent today. When we look at today's situation, the Ashtavadhanam takes place either in Telugu or Kannada or in Sanskrit. So these are the 3 languages where Avadhanam takes place. And East Godavari district is the hub of Avadhanis. So maximum number of Avadhanis live in Andhra Pradesh. So Andhra Pradesh has kept this Avadhanam tradition alive, and to a great extent or to some extent that you will find in Kannada. And in Kannada there is a revival of this art form. So everyone must be familiar with the name Shatavadhani R. Ganesh, a genius, a Shatavadhani, and proficient in various languages. So he has been constantly making efforts to revive and even train some of his students and others who are intent on learning from him. So on a regular basis, so they practice amongst themselves and get the training from him, training from each other, and this is how they are reviving the art form in Kannada. They also do it in Sanskrit and Kannada. So now in Ashtavadhanam, what happens? Who are these questioners? So in this talk, step by step, I will be talking about Ashtavadhanam, Satavadhanam, Sahasravadhanam, and the various Avadhan forms, the literary and other art forms. So, but let me start with Ashtavadhanam, and then slowly I will discuss about various other art forms connected with Avadhanam and various Avadhanis who are present at the present age. So in Ashtavadhanam, just imagine there is the Avadhani who is sitting in the center. He takes the center place, and on his both sides, so on one side, left side 4 people and the right side 4 people are sitting. These 8 people are known as Prachākas. Prachāka means questioner. They will be questioning. So they are known as Prachākas. Each Prachāka is also equally talented like the Avadhani, because they have to pose questions. There are many challenges. So each Prachāka is also a Vidwan. But please remember, it's not a group which is working. Any Vidwan can become a Prachāka in the Avadhanam. It is not pre-decided. Maybe like they will decide on the spot, or maybe it is decided a day before, but they don't practice that this is what we will be doing. So it's an instant test of the inner abilities and capacities of the Avadhani. So imagine the center place is taken by the Avadhani, the Prachākas, and there is someone who has to take the role of Adhyaksha, means presiding over the whole performance. So this Adhyaksha has to take note of everything that is happening, whatever the composition, whatever is happening in the Avadhanam, so he alone will be taking note of it, okay, and then give the final verdict whether it was a successful Avadhanam or not. Avadhani keeps no record of what is happening. He just sits, no pen, no paper, nothing. He just sits. Then the Avadhanam program begins. There are various ways Avadhanam program begins. Sometimes the Avadhani getting the instruction from the Adhyaksha begins the Avadhanam by introducing the program, by introducing the Prachākas, by introducing the Adhyaksha in poetry form. The entire show is an outpour and in extempore poetry form. Okay, so this is the literary feat in poetry form. Every question that the Avadhani has to answer by creating extempore poetry. And please remember, this is also important, the entire performance takes place in 4 rounds. Why 4 rounds? He has to answer by creating extempore poetry, and poetry in Sanskrit means has to have 4 metrical lines. 4 metrical lines together make a complete poem. And the Avadhani, when a question is posed to him with all the challenges, he doesn't answer by creating a complete poetry. In the first round, he will create only 1 line in answer to the questions of all the questioners, Prachākas, only 1 line. In the second round, no one is going to ask him questions. He will remember the question. He will remember the first line that he composed and then continue from there to give the second line in second round. Once that is complete, then in the third round, he will remember the question again, remember the 2 lines he composed and continue to give the third line in answer to the question in the third round. In the fourth round, he will remember the question, remember all the 3 lines he composed, and then complete the poem by giving the 4th round. This is how it takes place. Now the audience is listening only one line in each round. It doesn't remember, the audience doesn't remember what is the total poem. Now the last part of Ashtavadhanam is called Dharana. Dharana means, like here the Avadhani will remember the entire poem, what he composed, and reproduce it again to make the audience listen. This was the complete poem for each Prachākas. This is how the Avadhānaṃ performance takes place. Now, the most mesmerizing thing is to understand who are these Prachākas, what kind of challenges they pose before the Avadhāni. Now, in Ashtavadhanam, what kind of challenges these 8 questioners or 8 Prachākas pose? There is no first, second, third, fourth, but for the convenience of understanding, so I am putting it in some order. So, the first questioner is known as Nishidhākshari. The word is Nishidhākshara, or sometimes it is known as Nishidhākshara. So, Nishidhākshari or Nishidhākshari. Nishedha means prohibition. This particular questioner is highly challenging in the sense that now suppose it is the turn of Nishidhākshari, so he will ask the Avadhāni, he will turn his face towards the Avadhāni and then say, Mahoday, please compose a verse on Swami Vivekananda and in Anushtup meter. In Sanskrit, there are many chandas, many vrittas, metrical patterns. So, the Prachaka will specify a topic and the Prachaka will specify the meter in which he wants his topic to be composed by the Avadhāni. So, the Avadhāni has so many challenges before him. Usually what happens, like when something is posed before the Avadhāni, so the Avadhāni has to give one line in each round. Now, in the case of Nishidhākshari, he cannot compose the first line altogether. Particularly for this Prachaka, he has to compose letter by letter, in the sense that he will just give only one letter, keeping in mind the meter, the Vyakarana, the grammar of the language, the topic, and he has to be very tactful that the Prachaka is not able to anticipate the word that he has in his mind. Why? Because here the Avadhāni will give one letter, one syllable. Suppose he says V and the topic is Vivekananda. Now the Prachaka will anticipate the topic is on Vivekananda. He starts with V, perhaps he is going to start with Vivekananda. Now the Prachaka will say, sir, you cannot say Ve. Okay. Suppose he has the word Vivekananda in his mind, he is in trouble. That's why the Avadhānis keep 4-5 possibilities while composing and then give a letter. Each one is giving challenge to each other. Okay. Suppose he says Na. Na. Be Na. Now there are many possibilities with be Na, and the Prachaka may anticipate, is he going to say Vinaya or Vinamra? What? But anyway, he has to prohibit one letter. Suppose he says Ya is prohibited. So he will say Mra. Complete the word Vinamra. Vinamra means humble. Okay. Pointing out some aspect of Vivekananda, maybe like he was Vinamra, his Vinamrata. Or maybe like instead of completing it with Mra, he may have that, okay, if the Avadhāni, if the Prachaka is anticipating the word Vinamrata, so he may prohibit the word Ta. So he may complete it, that okay, Vinamra complete, he may start another word. So this is how letter by letter, syllable by syllable, keeping in mind, because he has to keep in mind the metrics also. The words have to follow the metrical challenges, the laghu, guru, positioning, okay. Then the word has to give the complete sense. With all these challenges, just imagine the poetic ability and the capacity of the Avadhanis. So like this, he will complete one line for Nishidhākshari and turn to the next questioner, which is known as, say, Samasya. Samasya means a trouble, puzzle, riddle. There are many forms of poetic puzzles. And in Samasya what happens? So most of the people are familiar with the word Samasya Purti, a Samasya Purana, than just Samasya. So Samasya is like Samasya Purti. In Samasya Purana what happens? Like the Prachāka has a line in his mind. That line is in a particular meter, and that line has a something enigmatic, some problematic line it is. So he will just express that line before the Avadhani as a Prachāka, Samasya Prachāka. Now the Avadhani has to understand in which meter the line is and what is the problem, and then compose the rest of the 3 lines in rest 3 rounds in such a manner that he completes the poem and gives a solution to the problem which is there in the last line, which is posed by the Samasya Prachāka. For example, on one occasion, one Prachāka gave this line to the Avadhani, saying that Mrga-simha palayate. It means, Mrga means a deer, Simha is lion. It says Mrga-simha palayate. The lion runs away from the deer. Does it happen ever that a lion will run away from the deer? No, no. So here is a puzzle. So what solution the Avadhani has to give? And instantly the Avadhani thought of a dialogue between Karna and Arjuna, 2 characters in the Mahabharata. Now Karna is telling Arjuna in the battlefield, Tishtha Arjuna adya sangrame. This is the first line. Tishtha Arjuna adya sangrame. It means Tishtha, stand, Arjuna, O Arjuna, adya sangrame, today in the battlefield. Hanishyami tvam aham sharehi. Hanishyami tvam, I will kill you, aham, sharehi, by my arrows. This is the second line. Tishtha Arjunadya sangrame, hanishyami tvam aham sharehi. Now Arjuna is replying back, Tishtami mudha Karna. O Karna, I am standing, I am not running away. Tishtami mudha Karna kim Mrga-simha palayate. Does a lion run away from the deer? Just adding kim does. He changed the whole situation. He gave a solution to this problem which was posed before him. This is how the Samasya Prachākas, they act in an Avadhana program. This is the second questioner. So he will pose before the Avadhani a line which contains a problem, for which the Avadhani has to create 3 more lines giving a solution, but those 3 lines also have to follow the same metrical pattern in which the last line is given to Avadhani. This is the second questioner. So here the Avadhani will give the first line and then turn to the third questioner known as Varnanam or Varnana. Varnanam means description. So here the Prachāka, the Prachāka will take some contemporary issue. Say for example, like recently the election is over and the election result has disturbed some people. So he will narrate a particular episode, a particular event of the contemporary situation or some situation. And after narrating this, so he will specify a meter, a metrical pattern, and then ask the Avadhani, so please describe this event in this particular meter. So for him also, the Avadhani will give one line in the first round. Then turn to the fourth questioner known as Dattapadi. Dattapadi means given words. Datta, given words, pada, Dattapadi. What happens particularly for this questioner? He gives 4 unrelated words. Sometimes it is so funny that in the Ashtavadhanam program, to create more humorous situations, to create more challenges for the Avadhani, and to make it more fascinating, sometimes the names of 4 cricket stars or 4 film stars will be given to the Avadhani, and then ask him that, okay, you fit it into the story of Mahabharata, any aspect of Mahabharata, Ramayana. And then the Avadhani has to take care that all the 4 words are fitting into the topic, fitting into the metrical pattern which is suggested to him. So this is Dattapadi. So suppose they give him karma, marma, sharma, varma. These are the 4 words. Then you fit it into the story of Rama and Krishna. So he will compose in such a manner that each line will contain these words, and then he will take care that it fits into the meter, it fits into the topic, Dattapadi. This is the 4th questioner. And there is the 5th questioner, the 5th Prachāka, who is known as Ashu. Now some of you must be familiar with Ashu Kavitva. Ashu Kavitva means instant composition of a poetry, non-stop, breathless composition. Okay. So now what happens, this Prachāka will give a topic, will suggest a meter, and particularly for this Prachāka, the Avadhani has to create a complete poem, not one line in each round. In each round, he has to listen to the suggestions by whatever is suggested to him, whatever is posed before him, and he has to give complete poem to Ashu, not one line. So every round, that means 4 complete poems he will compose for Ashu in 4 rounds, because it has to be a non-stop composition. The entire description which is posed before him, he has to narrate in a poetry form. So that shows the poetic ability of the Avadhani in composing instantly. Okay. These 5 questioners, Prachākas, are easy to handle for the Avadhani. The next 3, they are really challenging. The 6th Prachāka is known as Vyāstākshari. Vyasta means like it is messy, okay, disorderly, chaotic. Okay. Akshara. Akshara means the syllables. So what happens for Vyāstākshari? Vyāstākshari person will have a verse in his mind. Suppose his verse is in Anushtup meter, and Anushtup meter, any verse composed in Anushtup meter has to have 32 syllables altogether, because 8 syllables in each line, 8 into 4, 32. So he will write it down in a paper, syllable number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, up to 32nd. And when the Avadhani is busy in composing poems and attending to other Prachākas throughout the performance, intermittently, Vyāstākshari person will be posing questions like this. Avadhani Mahodaya, I have a verse in my mind, the 17th letter of which is, say, Kram. And after some times he will say the 15th letter is Pa. Okay, something like this, whatever is there. So, this number of syllables in a disorderly manner he will place before the Avadhani. The Avadhani, while attending to others, the Vyāstākshari may pose the a question before the Avadhani. While he was composing, he can stop him. He is interrupting him in the middle of a composition. That's the rule. So the Avadhani has to listen to him carefully, keep all the syllables in his mind, what is given to him in a disorderly manner, rearrange and tell at the end what was the verse in the mind of Vyāstākshari. This he has to do while attending to others. An extremely difficult job for an Avadhani. But the successful Avadhanis, existing Avadhanis, do it so beautifully that one becomes mesmerized by the capacity of these Avadhanis. So after Vyāstākshari, there is another person. He is not actually a Prachāka, but a person sitting with a bell. Okay. So when the performance is going on, this person intermittently will keep ringing the bell, dung. After some time he will make another sound. So the Avadhani, while attending to others, will listen to the bell sounds, remember, make a count of it silently, and tell at the end how many times the bell rang when he was performing. That was the 7th. And the 8th one is the most difficult one to handle, known as, so the 7th one is known as Ghanta. The 8th one is known as Aprastuta Prasanga. Aprastuta Prasanga means he is irrelevant to the context. His only role is to distract the Avadhani's concentration. So Aprastuta Prasanga, as a rule or by rule, can intervene at any point of time and interrupt him, distract his concentration. So, and by asking any question which has nothing to do with Avadhānaṃ topic. So he may ask him, Avadhani Mahodaya, did you have a love marriage or arranged marriage? In which TV channels you were interested in? Completely dragging him off the track. Okay. And by rule, the Avadhani has to satisfy the Aprastuta Prasanga and then continue from the point where he was interrupted. Suppose he is in the middle of a composition, he has to stop, satisfy Avadhani, and then go and continue, compose his poem wherefrom he was interrupted. So this is how in the first round he has to give one line, and for Ashukavi he will give the complete poem, but he is not answering anything to Ghanta and Vyāstākshari during first round, second round or third round. That he has to silently remember and tell at the end. So once the first round is over, in the second round, no one is going to ask him questions. So he will step by step, in which step he continued in the first round, following the same steps. So he will give the answer by composing the second line to Nishidhākshari, to Varnana, to Dattapadi, and then get a new information from the Ashu, new description, and then give a complete poem to him. So this is how, and the Samasya also one line. In the third round, he will repeat in the same way, and in the fourth round also he will repeat in the same way. And once the fourth round is over, then it is called Dharana. Now with the permission of the Adhyaksha, he will step by step. What was the complete poem for Nishidhākshari, complete poem for Samasya, complete poem for Varnanam, complete poem for Dattapadi, he will recite. There is no dharana for the Ashu because he has already said the complete poems in the respective round, and then he will say how many times the bell rang and then what was the verse in the mind of Vyāstākshari. Then the Adhyaksha will declare that okay, all the questions are answered perfectly, flawlessly by the Avadhani because he has the record, and then he will be declared as the whole performance will be declared as a successful performance. This in a very simple way is the explanation of what happens in an Ashtavadhanam, which requires 2.5 hours to 3 hours. But there are various variations in Ashtavadhanam. I explained 8 different Prachākas, 8 different items. There are variations in the sense like the Ghanta is sometimes replaced by Pushpa Kshepana, Pushpa Tadana. That means someone will be sitting behind the Avadhani and then throw flowers on his back. So he has to feel and tell at the end how many flowers were thrown on his back while he was giving the performance. Sometimes you have a Chitrakala, or sometimes you have a mathematical problem given to him, okay, to the Avadhani, like the magic squares and all these things. So he has to look at and then fill the squares. So like this, various things are added by different Avadhanis competent to handle such things. So each Avadhani has something unique added to his own Avadhan program. That's why there are various variations. So this in short is a description about Ashtavadhanam, and there are many Ashtavadhanis who perform in Sanskrit, in Telugu, in Kannada. So these are the 3 languages in which the Avadhan performance is performed in Bharat. Now like Ashtavadhanam, there are successful Satavadhanis. They attend to 100 different items, okay, and the performance goes on for say 2 days. On the end of the second day, the Avadhani will be in a position to answer what happened in the previous days. Like this, you have some people who have attempted Sahasravadhanam and then have succeeded in doing that in the literary field, Sahasravadhanam, which continues for 20 days. So the Avadhani is in a position to remember everything and then say what happened in the past 19 days, all the different compositions. Even some people have attempted, some Avadhanis have attempted Pancha Sahasravadhanam, 5,000, Dvisahasravadhanam, 2,000. Amazing people. So we have people like Vidwan Nagafani Sharma, then there are some Madasi Mohan ji and Narasimha Rao ji. So there are plenty of such Avadhanis who have attempted some unique Avadhanam like Sahasravadhanam, Dvisahasravadhanam, Pancha Sahasravadhanam. It's all happening. Now, anytime I myself have seen an Ashtavadhanam performance, I have not seen any Satavadhanam performance yet. I have just heard about it. So the literary Ashtavadhanam always gives this sense that this Avadhan Karyakrama or this Avadhan Kala is perhaps meant only for the elite people, because all those who will be sitting in audience must have the ability to understand Sanskrit, must have the ability to understand Telugu or Kannada, must have interest in Sahitya. They have to have ruchi in Sahitya, otherwise you will not enjoy the whole performance. Must be capable of understanding the subtle nuances, because they will be posing a lot of shleshas, puns, and it's a literary feat. All kinds of literary devices the Avadhanis use to create more amazing moments. Okay, so you say that, wow, such a beautiful word, such a beautiful description, such a beautiful pun. One becomes amazed looking at the performance of the Avadhanis. But how do we bring, this is great, this is definitely great, great minds, great art form, but how do we link it with our day-to-day life? How do we link it with our education? How do we bring the principles of Avadhanam into a classroom situation where all the different abilities which an Avadhani has, the students also develop while being educated in the classes, the same abilities, and those abilities are needed for everyone. Say for example, whatever we do, we need to be attentive, we need to have concentration. So concentration is the key. Concentration is the most important aspect of Avadhanam. Careful attention, concentration, observation, creativity, linguistic ability, poetic ability, these are the inner abilities that one has to develop within oneself. So after watching this Ashtavadhanam program in the year 1999, first, because I had to prepare some of the literature which need to be distributed to the people so then they understand what is Avadhanam. And also I played this role of like sitting with a group and then explaining them simultaneously what is happening, otherwise they will not enjoy. So all these things were happening before watching any Avadhanam program. What happened to me, I am narrating, that I thought, is this possible by anyone? Is this possible? And even after watching a successful Avadhan program, the same question comes, how was it possible by the Avadhani? Now in the whole performance you will see, like who is more tensed in any Avadhanam program? It is the audience which is more tense, like what's going to happen next, what next? Avadhani is comfortable, sitting. Look at the kind of confidence that the Avadhanis carries, the conviction, the certitude with which they handle all the Prachākas. It's amazing to see, unless and until one has put oneself into a rigorous discipline, it's difficult to attain to such kind of abilities, inner abilities where one can perform such kind of art form. Now my whole idea after watching it was how to bring it to life, how to translate the principles of Avadhanam into life and education. So this is where my quest, my search started, and for last 2 decades I have been researching into it and exploring many new areas of Avadhanam. Then coming in contact with various Avadhanam forms, visiting to their places, and coming to know about not just the Avadhanam in the literary field, but in various other fields, not just poetic Avadhanam, but various other kinds of art forms directly connected with Avadhanam. So it gave me hope that yes, we can translate it into life and education. So what happened? what kind of art forms I came in contact with. I had no idea about other than Ashtavadhanam or Satavadhanam or Sahasravadhanam, which happens in the field of literature. Then there was this one person who knew Telugu. He brought some literature on Avadhanam written in Telugu to me and explained me. I spent hours and hours with that person who explained to me the various Avadhanam art forms which exist in Andhra Pradesh. There is something which is known as Netra Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Ghanta Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Truna Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Chotika Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Nritya Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Tala Avadhānaṃ. There is something which is known as Sangeeta Geya Dhara. So like this, various kinds of Avadhan art forms, they exist and they are truly amazing. So my search, I became very strong, and day by day I started exploring into various art forms. In the year 2014, I was awarded a senior fellowship program by the Ministry of Culture, where I had chosen this topic as Avadhana Kala to dive little more deep into this art form and do a research and then prepare some kind of documents, which I did. But still I was not completely satisfied with what I have done. So it rather created more thirst in me to understand the deeper aspects of Avadhanam. Then I went to meet various Avadhanis. So I went to East Godavari district. I met a lot of Avadhanis, and in the form of discussion also, like many things came out. Then I applied for a project to the IKS division in the Ministry of Education, again to take this forward, this Avadhan Kala and consciousness studies, which was approved. And as a part of this project, many new things I discovered, and then found out those Avadhanis who are performing. Earlier I just knew about the names and the different forms which existed or exist, but I had never experienced the performance happening. Say for example, Netra Avadhānaṃ. What happens, how it happens, I had no idea about it. Just the name was there, there's something it has to do with Netra, eyes. Or Ghanta Avadhānaṃ, something it has to do with Ghanta. Or Tala Avadhānaṃ, something it has to do with Tala. But how does it happen? Who are the performers? I had no idea. So as a part of this project, we started searching for these Avadhanis. Who are these Avadhanis? Where do they exist? So we organized a program called Avadhana Sangama. So in that Avadhana Sangama, it happened for the first time in Bharat, in the history of Avadhanam, that various Avadhanis practicing different Avadhan art forms like Netra Avadhānaṃ, Ghanta Avadhānaṃ, Gita Avadhānaṃ, Tala Avadhānaṃ, Sangeeta Geya Dhara. So they all were together in Avadhana Sangama giving their performance. It was something really amazing, and it created as a history in the field of Avadhanam. So I will discuss something more about it, the different art forms, give some examples, so then you will understand like what are these art forms. Let me give a description of what happens in Netra Avadhānaṃ. So Netra Avadhānaṃ means this whole feat has to be performed through the eye movements. in Netra Avadhānaṃ, there are two Avadhānis, and both of them are expert Netra Avadhāni. They will be sitting facing each other on the stage. From the audience, someone who is coordinating can write it down from different people, a message. Suppose I want to send a message to one Netra Avadhāni, the Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Or someone will say something else. Someone will say something in Sanskrit or Kannada or Telugu or Tamil or English or Spanish or Italian. Language is not a barrier. So a message will be written and then sent to, say, the first Netra Avadhāni. So what the first Netra Avadhāni will do, will read the message and then decode the message through eye movements. The other Netra Avadhāni, the second Netra Avadhāni, sitting in front, very attentively look at the eye movements of the first Netra Avadhāni and then say what is the message conveyed by the first Netra Avadhāni. Suppose the first Netra Avadhāni through the eye movements is decoding my message, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. So the second Avadhāni, who has no idea about what is written on this paper, by carefully looking at the eye movements, will say that Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Amazing, whatever the language may be. How do they decode? And just imagine what kind of careful attention needed in observing the eye movements. If the person misses a single movement, then the proper message cannot be, deciphered. So the similar manner, sometimes the message can be conveyed through sounds by placing the spoon on a plate, at different places. This is known as Ghanta Avadhānaṃ. So like this, you have Netra Avadhānis, Ghanta Avadhānis, Bhuja Avadhānis, Anguli Avadhānis. So they communicate through the finger movements or the hand movements. Hasta Chalani. There is a form of Avadhānaṃ which is known as Satakalāsa Avadhānaṃ. Satakalāsa Avadhānaṃ means 100 pots will be filled in with waters. So the waters will be 100 different levels. So each level, like suppose you have a pot full of water, the sound will be different than if it is half filled. So 100 different levels the pots will be filled in, and the Avadhāni has to listen first to the different sounds, remember it, then he will be blindfolded, or he will be sitting, putting his back, and then someone will create these sounds, then he will remember and tell at the end, first the 88th pot was, sounded. So like this you have Satakalāsa Avadhānaṃ. Then you have Truna Avadhānaṃ, various kinds of Avadhāna forms which existed and which exist also. So our attempt through the project was to identify these different Avadhānis who exist and then bring them to one platform where they can do the performance, and then we record it, and it has been done. So there is something which is known as Gita Avadhānaṃ. So in the Gita Avadhānaṃ also there are prakriyas, there are processes. So there is also like Ashtavadhanam performed in the, where the topic is entirely Gita. So the Gita Avadhāni has all the 700 verses in his memory. He remembers all the 700 verses. So the different questions the 8 Prachākas can ask him. So someone may just say a word from a verse. So now the Avadhāni has to identify which verse, which chapter, which verse, and then repeat the whole verse. Or sometimes one Prachāka will just repeat one verse from any chapter, then the Avadhani is expected to repeat 10 more verses ahead or 10 more verses behind it. Okay, that's how his memory is put into test. Or sometimes Sankhya Kathana, in the sense that someone will be saying, say, verse number 34 of, say, chapter number 18 and line number this. So he has to say that. So that's how the Gita Avadhānaṃ, Amarakosha Avadhānaṃ, Yoga Sutra Avadhānaṃ. So taking in particular text, this is a beautiful way of memorizing the text. It inspires the students to keep the Shastra tradition intact, and then through a fun way, through a playful way, following this Avadhān art form, so they preserve and create interest among others also to take up such kind of practices. Now, there was something really amazing which I experienced for the first time. Of course, many of the Avadhana art forms I experienced, like me, many others who were present also experienced first time. There is something called Tala Avadhāna in the field of Sangeeta. Tala Avadhāna, that means like the talas, the Tala Avadhanis. So there will be two talas, they are playing on their hands simultaneously. Right hand playing one tala and left hand playing another tala, and there is a point where they will meet together. So when it becomes difficult, for example, like if I ask you move your hand, right hand clockwise and left hand anti-clockwise, how difficult is it? And what kind of attention, concentration it demands, what kind of balance it demands. It becomes extremely difficult. Right hand simultaneously going clockwise, left hand anti-clockwise. It's not possible by many of us. But they will be playing two different talas using their left and right hand, Tala Avadhāni. And very rare Tala Avadhanis exist at present. So we had one Tala Avadhanis, Shruti Ranjani and her sister, who came from Bangalore to give this performance. Apart from Tala Avadhāni, apart from Amarakosha Avadhāni, Yoga Sutra Avadhāni, Gita Avadhāni, Netra Avadhāni, and Ghanta Avadhāni, we also had one Ganita Avadhāni. Ganita is all related to arithmetic, algebra, mathematics, all forms of Ganita is put into test. So all kinds of mathematical puzzles, riddles, problems are posed before him, taking again the 8 questioners and the Ganita Avadhāni amazingly, different numbers, multiplications, divisions, so addition, subtraction. So all these they perform it very well. And then still more amazing was Sangeeta Geya Dhara. Very rare, and it's truly amazing, like how does a person do. The Sangeeta Geya Dhara person sits with a whole team of musicians, and from the audience someone will say that okay, Krishna's Navanita Chora, the stealing of butter of Krishna. So please sing it in, so then they will prescribe a raga. So in this raga, in this tala, describe Krishna's Navanita Chauryam, okay, stealing of butter by Krishna. Now the musicians, following the raga and the tala, they will start playing. Now there is no songs composed, previously composed songs, no. The person who does Sangeeta Geya Dhara, he will follow the music. As the music goes on, he will be singing it, composing, instant composition and then singing it. Okay, for an Avadhani who is creating extempore poetry, he has the choice to stop, think, repeat and then complete. But Sangeeta Geya Dhara person has no chance to stop because the music is going on. Otherwise he will miss the tala, he will miss everything. following the raga and the tala, how does one compose and then sing simultaneously? And there is a successful Sangita Geyadhara, just one person in the entire nation, in the entire world. Is it not amazing? These are the different fields of Avadhanam which we explored during the Avadhana Sangama. Then this gave me a lot of ideas. How do we look at this whole Avadhan? Now, looking at the various Avadhan art forms which are existing today, the Avadhanam can be divided into two broad groups. One is a Sanketika Avadhan, gesture-based Avadhan. One is Bhasha Avadhan, where Bhasha is Pradhan. Bhasha is important, central. Like the Sahitya Avadhan, Kavitva Avadhan, Sangita Geyadhara. Bhasha is important. Sanketika Avadhan, suppose Netra Avadhānaṃ, Ghanta Avadhānaṃ, Hasta Chalane. These are the Sanketika Avadhan. Even when you listen to a sound also, even it is a Sanketika, gesture based. Now, in the Bhasha Avadhan, in the Sanketika Avadhana, if you put them together, again the Avadhanam can be seen in three different forms. One is Smriti Avadhānaṃ, where the memory is central, memorization is central to it. Prajñā Avadhānaṃ, where the wit is central to it. And Pratibha Avadhānaṃ, where the poetic ability is central to it. So, Smriti Avadhānaṃ, Prajñā Avadhānaṃ and Pratibha Avadhānaṃ, and all the different art forms which exist today in the field of Avadhanam, they can be put into these three different forms. In Pratibha Avadhānaṃ, both Smriti and Prajñā also have to play a role. That's why Pratibha Avadhānaṃ is considered to be the greatest Avadhanam art form. But again, it is confined to the elite group, where people can understand and appreciate poetry, understand the language. In Smriti and Prajñā Avadhānaṃ, so they can be directly related to life and education. So, while exploring these Avadhanam, we find the Avadhanis in Karnataka and to a greater extent in Andhra Pradesh. In addition to this, there are many Jaina Munis. As a part of their sadhana, they practice this Avadhanam. So, there are hundreds of Jaina Munis. They practice Ashtavadhanam, Satavadhanam, Sahasravadhanam. Very recently, I experienced the Sahasravadhanam by one Muni Ajita Chandra Sagarji, who was a disciple of Muni Nayachandra Sagarji. So, both of them, they were sitting, and Muni Ajita Chandra Sagarji, who is hardly 24-25 years old. So, the performance took place in Mumbai, and it was a Sahasravadhanam performance, where 1,000 people, literally 1,000 people posed various challenges before Muni Ajita Chandra Sagara, who patiently listened to all the questions from 8:30 to 2:30 p.m. 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And then after that, for the next 3 hours, he remembered step by step all the questions which were asked to him, and then kept on answering the questions, whether it is a mathematical puzzle, whether something was tossed on his back, whether something was shown to him, whether some riddles, puzzles or some shastras were posed before him to repeat certain lines from the shastras, or repeat the names of the Mahapurushas which were repeated before him. Various kinds of questions, and numbering 1,000 questions, he answered very patiently, where for the first time I could experience where the common people participating in an Avadhanam program, The 1,000 people who posed questions before him, they were not elite people. They were the common people. They were invited on the spot to pose any question before them. Of course, they have to follow the prescription, like the particular type of question. Suppose 25 people have to come in front of the Avadhani and then show them the flags of 25 different nations. So in that batch, 25 people from the audience will come and then show them the 25 different flags. Of course, the flags were available in front of the thing, or it was shown through the PowerPoint presentation on the television. So this was amazing to see, like where thousands and thousands of common people sitting and participating in an Avadhanam program, and very successfully Muniyajita Chandrasagar completed his Sahasravadhanam. Now this is what was giving me hope that what kind of activities, what kind of programs that we can bring to the classroom situation, to the common people, where people can practice this and develop the Avadhanam ability in them, the power of attention they can experience, the power of concentration, observation, imagination, creativity. All these things can be developed among the children right from their childhood. So based on our experience, we also have created a program called Bala Avadhānaṃ, where we take children below 12 years and then make them go through various kinds of activities where they become aware of their limitations, and these activities help them to develop their grahana samarthya, means their grasping ability, their smarana samarthya, their power of memorization, and their dharana samarthya, their power of recollection and repeating. So the power of retention, the power of recollection, and the power of grasping, grahana, dharana, and smarana samarthya. This is how through various activities we try to bring refinement to various senses of the children and their concentration ability. Sometimes we make them So in Bala Avadhānaṃ, we try to see how do we bring refinement to their senses, how do we help them developing their concentration power, how do they become more and more aware of themselves and what's happening, how do they become more efficient in memorizing various things read out to them, shown before them, or they come in contact. So we have Darshana Avadhāna, we have Shravana Avadhāna, we have Rasana Avadhāna, we have Ghrana Avadhāna, we have Sparsha Avadhāna. So all the five senses are put into test. For example, like if you now ask many children to smell different spices, coriander or cumin seeds or pudina, mint or ginger or turmeric. So sometimes the children fail to smell and say like what exactly it is. Sometimes they fail to say even after tasting it. No, because the senses are not very sensitive, senses are not very refined. So with unrefined senses, we can get incomplete information sent inside. So how do we see accurately? How do we hear accurately? How do we feel accurately? How do we taste accurately? How do we smell accurately? So this accuracy is something which has to be achieved by the refined senses or through the refinement of senses. If the senses are well refined, then the accuracy will be there. So in the normal life, what happens? Seeing we don't see, Hearing we don't hear, smelling we don't smell because there is no accuracy. So this is the work that can be done when the children are small during their developmental phase, growing phase. We can help them developing various powers, cognitive powers through various activities. So friends, after going through the various Avadhan forms, after experiencing them happening right in front of my eyes, and after realizing that many aspects of these Avadhana techniques can be translated into life and education, I have a strong feeling that this Avadhan art form, about which there is not much awareness in the public, so can be brought into classroom situation, can be brought into the public, to the common people, can be made a part of our day-to-day life in developing these different inner powers, the hidden powers within ourselves, which can help us making our life beautiful, making our life achieving its true purpose, in achieving the true purpose of life and education. So this is what I feel, and I invite you all to know more and more about the Avadhanam, the different Avadhana forms which exist, and then study about it, know about it, and become aware about this rare art form which exists in India, various rare Avadhanis who are existing today in Bharat. So let's celebrate this Avadhanam art form and then make it a part of our life and education. Then we can truly contribute something, making this Avadhanam art form a truly national art form, and then pay highest regard to the Avadhanis who have, through their efforts, have kept these different art forms alive. Namaskar and Dhanyavad, and I am extremely happy that Sangam Talks doing amazing work in preserving various traditional forms, the Indian knowledge system. And today I am happy that I have been invited by Sangam Talks to make a presentation of this Avadhanam and talk about my experience, my journey with the Avadhanam, and what work is happening, and what's the future plan, what is expected from the different projects which we have taken up in this field of Avadhanam, to share my experience. So I am extremely thankful to Sangam Talks for inviting me for this talk, and I hope that this talk will help others to understand what is Avadhanam, and it will help in spreading awareness about Avadhanam. Dhanyavad.